What if the most powerful navy on Earth could destroy thousands of drones, strike command centers and dominate the skies, yet still fail to reopen the most important shipping lane on the planet? Because the strangest battlefield of this war is not inside a bunker. It is not inside a missile silo. It is not even inside the control room of a drone operator. It is somewhere much quieter. A narrow stretch of water between Iran and the Arabian Peninsula. The Strait of Hormuz. A place where a few miles of ocean decide whether millions of barrels of oil move freely, or whether the global economy begins calculating risk. From above, Hormuz looks almost insignificant. A thin blue corridor. A line of water cutting between mountains and desert. Satellite images show commercial ships moving slowly through a narrow passage surrounded by coastline. Islands. But this view hides the real story. Because the Strait of Hormuz is not just a waterway. It is a strategic weapon. And right now, that weapon is creating a question that even overwhelming military power cannot easily answer. How do you defeat a threat that does not need to win a battle to change the world? On the night of the latest American strikes, the battlefield looked familiar. Explosions, aircraft overhead, precision weapons moving toward targets. American forces announced strikes against Iranian military infrastructure, operation centers, maritime capabilities, drone storage facilities, logistics networks. From a traditional military perspective, this is exactly how a stronger force fights. Find the enemy system, locate the critical nodes, destroy the ability to continue operations. But here's the problem. A battlefield is not always decided by what gets destroyed. Sometimes it is decided by what people are still afraid of. And that difference changes everything. Because while American aircraft were striking Iranian military infrastructure, commercial traffic through Hormuz remained almost frozen. According to ship tracking data, only 3 commodity vessels crossed the strait on one Tuesday. Not 3 oil supertankers. Not 3 LNG carriers carrying natural gas. 3 commercial ships. A rye bulk carrier. And a ship carrying refined palm oil. The ships that matter most for global energy markets were missing. No very large crude carriers. No major LNG anchors. And that created the first contradiction. If American military power is hitting Iran's drone system, why are the world's largest energy ships still staying away? To understand the answer, you have to look beyond the explosion. It is not even the Iranian Navy. The hero of this documentary is the Strait of Hormuz itself, a geographic bottleneck that transforms small weapons into strategic pressure. The core question is simple. Can one narrow waterway challenge the world's most advanced military system? Iran has understood something that larger conventional militaries often struggle with. Geography cannot be destroyed. Ships can be sunk. Radar sites can be bombed. Aircraft can be shot down. But a narrow passage between 2 coastlines remains exactly where it is. And Iran built its strategy around that reality. The first image that reveals this strategy is not a missile launch. A satellite image of southern Iran. Rocky mountains, empty desert, small islands scattered across the Gulf. At first glance, no obvious military base, no massive fleet, no giant aircraft carrier. But hidden inside those mountains are tunnels, storage sites, and launch positions designed for one purpose: survival. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy built a network based on dispersion. Instead of placing all power inside one large naval base, it spread capability across many locations. Small boats hidden inside caves. Missiles moved between underground facilities. Drones stored away from obvious targets. Mobile launch systems that can disappear after firing. The idea was simple. Do not create one powerful target. Create hundreds of smaller problems. because a larger military can destroy a fortress. But what happens when there is no single fortress? This is the first lesson of the Strait of Hormuz. A smaller force does not always need to defeat a stronger force. Sometimes it only needs to create enough uncertainty. A anchor captain does not think like a naval commander. A naval commander asks, "Can we defeat the threat?" A tanker company asks, "Is this voyage worth the risk?" Those are completely different questions. And Iran's strategy depends on the second one. Imagine a crude oil tanker entering Hormuz, carrying millions of barrels of energy, moving slowly through predictable shipping lanes. It is not designed to fight. It is designed to transport. That makes it vulnerable. But the vulnerability is not only physical. The bigger weakness is economic. A drone does not need to sink the ship to create consequences. A possible attack changes insurance costs. A possible mine changes navigation decisions. A possible missile changes crew willingness. A possible boarding attempt changes the entire calculation. The weapon is not only the damage. The weapon is the uncertainty. And this is where modern warfare begins to look very different. The United States has enormous advantages. Advanced aircraft, global intelligence networks, carrier groups, precision weapons, stealth platforms. But here's the contradiction. The same technology that allows America to destroy targets anywhere does not automatically create control everywhere. A destroyed drone warehouse is a military success. But a frightened shipping industry is a strategic problem. Those two things can exist at the same time. The American response shows this changing battlefield. The latest strikes were not only about destroying drones. Because a drone is never just a drone. A drone needs a factory. It needs storage. It needs technicians. It needs batteries. It needs communications. It needs intelligence. It needs launch crews. It needs transportation. It needs command decisions. And that is what the United States appears to be targeting. Think about a drone launch as a chain. Information must identify a target. Then someone must decide to attack. Then equipment must move. Then a launch site must prepare. Then operators must communicate. Then the weapon must travel. Break one link, and the entire chain becomes slower. This is why military planners do not only hunt weapons, because systems determine whether weapons can continue appearing. But here's where the story becomes more complicated. A system designed around survival does not need to remain untouched. It only needs to survive enough. Iran does not need every drone. It does not need every missile. It does not need every fast boat. It only needs enough remaining capability to keep uncertainty alive. And that creates a completely different kind of conflict. A traditional war asks, who destroys the enemy's forces? But a strategic competition asks, who can continue operating after losing forces? That is a much harder question. The hidden battle is already beginning to emerge. Everyone is watching explosions. Everyone is watching aircraft. Everyone is watching drones falling from the sky. But the part most people miss is this. The real battlefield may not be the coastline. It may be inside the decision-making process of every company deciding whether to send a ship through Hormuz. Because a missile can be intercepted. A drone can be destroyed. But fear spreads differently. It moves through insurance markets, energy prices, government decisions, and global supply chains. The Strait of Hormuz has always been valuable because of what moves through it. Around 1/5 of the world's petroleum liquids consumption normally passes through this narrow corridor. Large energy exporters depend on it. Global markets depend on it. But the most important thing moving through Hormuz is not oil. And confidence is much harder to restore than infrastructure. This is why the number 3 matters. It is a signal. I signal that military strikes and economic behavior are moving on different timelines. A missile strike happens in seconds. A shipping company changes behavior over weeks. A government adjusts energy policy over months. And that creates the central mystery of this war. America may be winning the battle against individual targets. But is it winning the battle for normality? Because the Strait of Hormuz was never only about controlling ships. It was about controlling decisions. And the next question is the one that reveals the deeper battlefield. What happens when a military can destroy the enemy's weapons, but cannot destroy the uncertainty those weapons create? The answer begins with a shift in perspective. Because everyone thinks this battle is about drones, about missiles, about ships moving through a narrow waterway. But the real battle is about something far more difficult to destroy. Decision-making under uncertainty. It is a psychological battlefield. And that changes the entire calculation. A satellite image shows the same coastline, the same mountains, the same blue water. But now the question is different. Not how many Iranian drones survived. The question becomes, how much uncertainty can Iran create with the weapons that remain? And this is where the traditional measurement of military power begins to fail. Because military strength is usually measured by destruction. How many aircraft were destroyed? How many ships were sunk? How many missiles were intercepted? But strategic power is often measured by behavior. Did the enemy change its decisions? Did companies stop operating? Did governments change their policies? Did markets react? The lesson here is that modern warfare is increasingly about controlling choices, not just destroying equipment. This is why the absence of large tankers crossing Hormuz matters so much. A very large crude carrier is not just another ship. It represents a chain of decisions. A captain deciding whether to sail. An insurance company deciding whether to provide coverage. A shipping company deciding whether the profit justifies the risk. A refinery deciding whether it can wait for another cargo. A government deciding whether strategic reserves should be released. One drone attack may last minutes, but the consequences can continue for weeks. The hesitation is strategic. And this reveals one of the most important ideas in asymmetric warfare. It attacks the relationship between the strongest force and the environment around it. Iran cannot compete with the United States ship for ship, aircraft for aircraft, satellite for satellite. But that is not the competition Iran is trying to create. It is trying to create a battlefield where American military superiority becomes expensive to apply. Because every problem has a cost. Every drone requires surveillance. Every possible missile launch requires attention. Every tank or escort requires ships and aircraft. Every threat requires another layer of protection. The question is whether America can maintain constant protection indefinitely. This is why the recent strikes against drone infrastructure are strategically important. But they are not the entire solution. Imagine an underground factory. Destroy the building. The factory stops. But imagine a network. A workshop hidden in one city. Storage somewhere else. Launch teams moving through another region. Communications operating through another system. Suddenly, the target is no longer a building. It becomes an ecosystem. And ecosystems are harder to eliminate. The United States understands this problem. That is why the focus has moved toward the kill chain. The phrase sounds technical. Every attack has a sequence. Someone sees the target. Someone makes a decision. Someone prepares the weapon. Someone moves it. Someone launches it. Someone guides it. Someone evaluates the result. A military does not win only by destroying weapons. Inside an American command center, the battle looks completely different from the images seen online. There are no dramatic explosions, no burning ships, no fighter jets crossing the sky. Data, signals, patterns, a small movement near the coastline. A communication pattern changing. A drone shipment arriving somewhere unexpected. Modern warfare is becoming a competition between visibility and concealment. One side tries to disappear. The other tries to reveal. But here's the problem. The same technology that allows the United States to see more of the battlefield also creates new challenges. More information does not always mean more certainty. A satellite can see movement, but it cannot always understand intention. A truck can move, but is it carrying weapons? A building can be suspicious, but is it a command center? A radar signal can appear, but is it a threat? The battlefield is filled with questions, and every answer requires time. Time that commercial shipping does not always have. This is why geography remains Iran's greatest advantage. Technology changes, weapons evolve, but geography remains. The Strait of Hormuz is narrow. The coastlines are close. The shipping routes are predictable. Large commercial vessels cannot simply avoid the area completely. They must pass through a limited corridor. That creates a permanent strategic dilemma. The United States can dominate the air above Hormuz. It can strike targets deep inside Iran, but it cannot move the mountains. It cannot widen the strait. It cannot remove the geography that creates the problem. And this is where energy enters the battlefield, because Hormuz is not only a military issue, it is an economic pressure point. When ships slow down, energy markets react. Transportation costs rise. When uncertainty grows, companies begin searching for alternatives. Longer routes, different suppliers, emergency reserves, new contracts. The world economy starts adapting, and adaptation itself becomes a strategic consequence. The bigger picture is that modern wars are no longer decided only by who owns the most advanced weapons. They are decided by who controls the systems around those weapons. A drone is a system. A anchor route is a system. A military alliance is a system. The side that understands systems often gains advantages that individual weapons cannot provide. Fast boats, mines, drones, coastal surveillance, underground storage. Each layer creates another question. Can the boats be stopped? Can the missiles be intercepted? Can the drones be detected? Can the mines be cleared? Can the shipping lanes be protected? The goal is not necessarily to create one unstoppable weapon. The goal is to create enough problems at the same time. But there is another contradiction. A strategy based on uncertainty can create influence, but it can also create isolation. The same actions that pressure global shipping can also damage Iran's own economy. Military resources consumed by constant confrontation. And that creates the long-term question. How long can uncertainty itself become a sustainable weapon? For the United States, the challenge is equally complex. Destroying Iranian military infrastructure is a military problem. Restoring commercial confidence is a political and economic problem. Those are different missions. One requires aircraft. The other happens through behavior over time. A shipping company does not return because of one successful strike. It returns after a pattern of stability. This is why the future of Hormuz may not be decided by the next missile. It may be decided by the next few months of calculations. Will shipping companies believe the threat has decreased? Will Iran continue to maintain enough capability to create uncertainty? Will international partners contribute to maritime security? Or will both sides continue competing in a cycle of pressure and response? Because the deepest lesson from the Strait of Hormuz is not about drones. It is not about missiles. It is about the evolution of warfare itself. The strongest military in the world can destroy targets. But controlling a battlefield requires something more. Shaping decisions. Shaping what people believe is possible. The real question is who can control the systems that determine whether those weapons actually change the outcome. Because future conflicts may not be decided by the side that destroys the most. They may be decided by the side that can create the most pressure while surviving the longest. In future wars, will victory belong to the nation with the strongest military force, or the nation that understands how to control uncertainty itself?